The show where anything goes. Motivation, mindset, recovery, philosophy, and life. We become who we are through what we experience. We all have a story, and this is My Backstory with Josh Boyer.
Boom. We're recording. Maybe that was a little loud. So yeah, I'm here with Recycle for Veterans. I'm super stoked. I want you guys to share your story, like what your company's all about. Maybe a little bit about yourselves first, like who you are, where you come from, what your story is a little bit. I don't care so either one of you can start first. And then we'll get into the company and what you guys are doing, what your mission is. So
sounds good.
Take it away, man.
You want to go ahead?
Awesome. Yeah. So my name's Andrew Levin. I'm originally born and raised here in California. I grew up near Capo Beach and Lake Forest, so my love of the ocean kind of started young, going out and playing in the sand. I joined the Marine Corps right out of high school. I was in 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. I have my mug right here. In 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, I was a machine gunner. I was a scout swimmer, so my love of the ocean only kind of compounded on that. So when I got out, we'll get to the mission statement after this. But
what made you want to join the Marines? Like, did you know, like, from the time you were younger that you wanted to be in the military, and why Marines over the better branch, the Air Force? But I mean, anyway, why? What made you choose to go to the Marines?
I always just kind of wanted to serve my country. I had that feeling almost, and I had a mentor growing up who was a Marine. He kind of talked me out of the Army. Actually, one of the stories when I was in high school, we did this mile-long incline running up a hill, and I was ahead of all the recruiters for the Army because that's what I was originally going to go into. And then I thought to myself, like, yeah, maybe I should try the Marine Corps,
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Kyle?
So, grew up in Mission Viejo, so native to Southern California.
Yeah.
And just throughout high school and everything growing up, I had a lot of family who served in the Marine Corps, and I was always that kid on the block playing with airsoft guns or, just playing with toy BBs and stuff like that, typical kid stuff, And after my cousin had joined, I just had that feeling. I was like, I want to serve. I could have pursued, just going to college. I had a family that was going to support me in any way, but just decided I wanted to serve and give back to the country, especially the Marine Corps. So.
What year did you go in?
I joined in 2013.
Oh wow! So yeah, that was definitely after.
Yeah, same with
2014.
Going into 2014.
Wow. That's super cool because I think it's kind of rare when you see kids that come from Mission Viejo, Lake. You don't see it too often. You know what I mean? You see usually, at least in my experience, was kids that came from a lower income maybe, or you don't see recruiting stations in Beverly Hills, right?
Exactly.
You don't hear about them or anything like that.
For sure, it's usually not an option. I mean, there are people that come from affluent neighborhoods and families that go into the military to serve, but it's typically as officers, right? You go to the academy or whatever, and it's part of the leadership grooming or whatever. So what was your big decision? What was the catalyst that was hey man, I'm gonna definitely go in for sure?
So I think my cousin Scotty, he served after 9/11, and growing up I always just chose him as a role model. He just throughout the years he served 15 plus, so pretty much my whole upbringing in life was just going to him for mentorship and stuff, and just had a big influence on me wanting to serve.
Yeah. And then you mentioned before the podcast that you guys were in during peacetime, well, quote unquote peacetime,
right?
Where you didn't do combat deployments and stuff like that.
Right.
I mean, it's definitely not peacetime because there's still a war going on, but it's not at the height of it, obviously. Did you think that when you went in, did you anticipate getting deployed? Did you go in knowing that there's a high likelihood that you guys are probably going to go downrange?
So,
For
myself, I personally knew that the Marines weren't doing any combat deployments infantry wise at the time, but I was still just ready to go. That's the whole point, peacetime or not, you know, if nothing happens during your time, at least, you know, you served your country and you were there ready to do it if it was going to happen, you know.
Right. What was the, did you have, like, were you guys kind of, like, bummed that you didn't go down range? Because I know for me, like, I went in 2000. So I was in before 9/11, and then I got out in 2003. As luck would have it, I didn't go down range. I was overseas. I was stationed in England, and so a bunch of guys were getting deployed. But they had us in these AAF buckets that they have in the Air Force, where like kind of allows you to plan for deployments almost, because it's like, oh, during these months you're going to be training. During these months, if you're going to deploy, these are the months that you're going to deploy. There's kind of a way to plan your family around it. I mean, obviously that's not always set in stone. They can make it if something happens in the world and you gotta go. But anyway, my AAF bucket wasn't up, and I ended up not deploying. But for a long time, I felt like this sense of like, I guess I was bummed. You know, I felt like, am I really like a true veteran because I didn't go down range and I didn't like go to combat? And I know there's a lot of guys I was stationed with, some of them that didn't get deployed as well, that felt the same way. Where it's like you have people telling you Happy Veterans Day, and like you, almost like. After 9/11, everyone was super stoked for the military. You know what I mean? Like it was like everyone was pro-military, and you people like they giving veterans discounts now and doing things for veterans. And when they would say Happy Veterans Day to me, I almost felt like, dude, like don't say it to me, say it to the homeboy over here that's done like 6 combat deployments. You know? Yeah. Did you have any sense of that, like when you were like because you didn't go down range? Or?
I kind of did, definitely. I mean, going to a Victor unit right out of School of Infantry.
Yeah.
During School of Infantry, everyone was kind of hyped up. They were saying we're going to do a provisional rifle company and go to Iraq. This is during the whole ISIS threat. We never ended up doing that, obviously, but there was always that sense of almost not, I wouldn't say remorse, but definitely, you train to do that job and then you're not allowed to go.
Right.
So that was definitely a setback for me. And when I got out, having a lot of friends who did go downrange and go to combat, telling me like, look, you're lucky. I came back without a leg. I came back, with PTSD or whatever the case may be. A lot of them kind of saw it as a blessing, where I saw it as a setback and not able to do my job.
Yeah, there was buddies even that I had that went downrange, and because they didn't come back like missing an arm, or they didn't come back with like any kind of injuries, they felt almost like guilty for accepting any benefits, or guilty when people tell them Happy Veterans Day because they weren't all jacked up from it, And it's like, dude, you're blessed, man. You're one of the lucky ones, dude. Like,
exactly.
Just be grateful for that,
Yeah.
Yeah, I knowing when I joined the Marine Corps and like I wanted to go into infantry, I did security forces first,
right.
And I did that solely because I didn't really, I knew there wasn't really anything going on, and I wanted to try something new. And I knew like security forces gave that option. Yeah. And then once I went to my Victory unit, 1-1 in the infantry, I knew nothing was really going on or anything, but a lot of people our generation in the infantry, I feel like, have that sense of like, they're like, oh, I wish we did this, oh, I wish we did that. And like, I feel like people weren't really focused on like, the now, like just, you still did all that, you still served when your country called for it. But
I think what's happening though is you see a lot of like back in the day when you had like the Vietnam veterans that were coming back, and then you had these new people going in the military like during peacetime or whatever. You have those mentors to like look up to and kind of guide you and teach you, from what I've heard. And I think it's the same way for the Marine Corps, the Air Force, the Army, and the Navy, where you have 9/11 happened, and the guys that were deployed because of 9/11 are still in the military, or just now retiring and getting out. But the younger Marines, the younger airmen, and the younger soldiers and Navy guy sailors were seeing these guys come back or hearing their stories, and so it's almost like, damn, man, I wish I could have like done some of that. So I think that's why you see some of the people that are like wishing they could have done like a little bit more. But it is what it is. I mean, you look at it, like when I look at it now from where I sit, it's like, man, like I got a beautiful family, like things are good, like I'm not missing any limbs, like I've had a couple surgeries, and it is what it is, but it's not the end of the world, you know what I mean? I can still walk around, still get it done, so it's all good. What was the catalyst for you guys deciding, number one, that you were going to link up outside of the military, and then number two, like starting Recycle for Veterans?
So, actually, Andrew and I grew up together. So
Oh, really?
Yeah,
so
we came out of the same recruiting station and everything, and so we kept in contact. And actually, while I was in the field, we were doing the Marine Corps combat readiness exercise.
Yeah.
He had just come back in town, and he's like, "Hey, I know you guys are in the field. Do you want me to bring you like burritos or something?" And we're like, 2 weeks in the field, we're hungry, tired, and I'm like, "Yes, please." I dropped him a 10-digit grid.
So
He showed up in his car, and he's like handing me the burritos, and I'm
That's
like,
awesome.
Yeah, walked out
"Can't be
there,
painted out."
trying not to get blasted by some gunny.
Some
or
gunny,
something.
yeah. I told him, I'm like, "Hey, Staff Sergeant's gone, hurry."
Yeah, that is awesome.
But yeah, we just grew up together, you know, going to the same RS, and then we knew originally we're like, oh, we're going to SOI together, you know, we're going to get in the same unit together. And then we got
Carpooled there.
separated.
What does that mean for people who don't? I mean, I know what it means, but for people who are listening, what are they?
School of Infantry.
Okay.
It's where you go after boot camp in the Marine Corps.
We actually carpooled together, and we're sitting there, and they called his name on the roster, and I'm like, "Okay, where's my name?" And they just never called it, and I'm like, "Okay, I guess."
Were you guys stationed at Pendleton together?
Correct. He was over in Mateo, and I was over in Horno.
Which is like, how far apart is that?
It's like 5 miles,
Yeah, maybe
5-10 miles, yeah.
Super cool. I wish I would have had like guys. There was a couple guys from the high school I went to that went into the Air Force, and I actually saw one of them when I think I was in tech school for security forces, which was also on Lackland, where we did boot camp. And I ran into a dude that I went to high school with, and he was just graduating from basic, and I was like, "Oh, dude, what's up, man?" And, but I mean, he was going to be like I think he was going to be like a helicopter like mechanic or something. It's
Yeah,
like, who
like
knows
that.
where he's getting stationed? I never saw him again. You know?
Exactly.
But that's pretty cool when you get to grow up with somebody, and then you like go in the military together and do your thing.
Yeah, you know, it's been an awesome journey, and then what led to Recycle for Veterans ultimately was us both getting out at the same time. I unfortunately got medically separated after I got hurt, which ended up being around the same time he was getting out, because he had a 4-year and I had a 5-year.
Oh, okay.
Because I was security forces, and
Yep.
they only did 5 years for those.
Why don't you,
So-
do you mind sharing that story? What happened? How you got hurt?
Yeah, so we were doing the McCree for our workup to go to Japan, and unfortunately my AAV during the exercise rolled over a gas line,
Yeah.
and you know, caused some guys to get hurt.
Yeah. Like
So-
how bad? Like was it bad?
Yeah, a lot of dudes got burnt pretty bad. Like, we're talking like severely in the hospital and stuff like that. It
Yeah.
was. It's
So
pretty.
did you end up going to Japan or no?
No,
Wow.
a couple of us did. Those who weren't as hurt as bad, you know, lack of a better term.
Right.
But a lot of guys stayed back and you know, got medically separated afterwards, or
Right.
still hanging out at Wounded Warrior until they're good to go to get out. So.
What about you? Like when you got out, did you just get out on your?
Yeah, I just got out. I actually ended my career at the training tank, so as a lifeguard and swim instructor at the pool.
Yes.
Super awesome, about 8 months. I mean, it was just teaching kids how to swim that couldn't swim that are grown adults, so
Dude, that's awesome.
it was
super
great.
cool.
Yeah, it was a
There's
lot
a
of
guy
fun.
I know over there that was doing. He's like a combat. I don't know what they call it in the Marines. I guess a combat diver or a combat swimmer or something like that. And he's a recon guy. And I want to say he was in Florida for a little bit, like training a bunch of dudes over there.
He probably
And
was.
then now he's back at Pendleton. I don't know what the hell he's doing now, but it's so funny when you see like people that aren't in the military and then guys that are, and then like the ones that are civilians, be like, yeah, I know a guy that's in the Marines. You know Bob Smith? And
Yeah.
It's like, totally, dude.
Like, yeah, no, the whole base, like Pendleton, is the size of, you know, like a small city. So yeah, no, I know him.
So how did Recycling for Veterans start?
So, when I was at Wounded Warrior, you know, I knew I was getting out, and I was actually working out in the training facility there, and I was like, I need to figure something out. And I didn't, you know, I see everything in the world going on where, like, the pollution, you know, the plastic epidemic we're in, like, you look at some countries and, like, their beaches are just flooded with, like, bottles, sandals, you know, all this debris, and it's just terrible. And I was like, what could I do to, like, give back to veterans, but also the world? Because, like Andrew said, growing up, you know, we had the beach and stuff like that. We've always been at the beach growing up and stuff, and over time it just got, you know, dirty, even though, you know, the cities have allocated money to clean these beaches, but it doesn't get the job done.
Yeah.
So, I can't speak for Andrew on this, but when I was a Wounded Warrior, I was like, what could I do? And thus Recycle for Veterans was a concept, and then link it up with Andrew. I was like, hey dude, you're getting out. I was like, and he's like, yeah man. And then we just linked up and we talked. We're like, dude, let's do this. Like, let's make an impact by bringing veterans together and just simply going to beaches, cleaning up, and it slowly started this movement, and it's working out for us, man.
Yeah, it's awesome because I think you see a movement within the veteran community away from the Neanderthal type thinking, where it's people are just like, oh, don't be a pussy, don't be a money. It's like people are waking up to more of leaving the world a better place. What can we do to make humanity better? What can we do to do things that's going to leave a lasting impact for the next generation? You know what I mean?
Exactly, because at the end of the day, everyone hits the ground at one point, and what'd you do for the future?
Right.
And I think it's amazing how just some people are just unfortunately slowly realizing, but it's coming to a huge consensus that this is a problem.
Yeah, for sure. So what's the mission statement of Recycle for Veterans?
So we have what we call our 3 pillars. So we recycle for local businesses. We put on these beach cleanups, these environmental events, almost as a networking event as well for veterans. And then we sell our t-shirts, and 10% of those sales go to veteran charities each month.
Nice. And how are you guys monetizing your business? Is it just through the selling of merchandise?
Correct.
Right.
So our t-shirt sales solely fund the business at the moment. So, if you buy a shirt, we promise 10% of that will go to a veteran charity we selected for the month.
Right.
For example, Simplify Fund is one we used this past month.
So you guys are considered a nonprofit, LLC?
No, we're a for-profit business, but 10% goes to the charity, and that's what we're doing for now until we can keep the workforce going, because we want to make this happen for everyone.
What's the biggest what's the big goal for you? When you're looking at the business Recycle for Veterans, what do you envision it being a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
I envision us 5 years down the road hiring veterans, having this community of veterans because people get out and they always say they're not happy where they're working, people don't get them and stuff like that. I want to have this community of veterans where they could still have that similar camaraderie, still get the military feel, but not be in the military and still creating an impact. And it's almost a continuing service, but just for the world, in a different way.
It's totally
feel
cool. Yeah, I think that's so true. When guys get out, you're so used to that sense of camaraderie and loyalty,
exactly.
And mixing up with the guys and girls that you're stationed with. Then you get out, you just don't feel that same sense of family and togetherness and security and the things that you valued in the military. It's tough,
Of course.
And you're going to work for corporate or wherever you go, and it's oh man, this sucks.
No. You throw a bone for someone else, the odds of them throwing you a bone back,
Right.
I think too a big issue is in the military you're told how to do everything. I mean, up from your shoelaces. I mean, so when dudes get out, they almost have no direction, and we want to be there to kind of lead them and be like, look, this is slowly how you reintegrate. This is slowly how you think for yourself again. How you can be an independent thinker as far as what you do in life.
Yeah, it's funny. I shared this story before, I think, on a podcast, but when I got out, I remember my grandma had this guest house in the back of her house, and she was like, yeah, I'm going to redo it for you, so you can have, a little guest house, you can live here, and she had it all set up, and so, it was awesome. But she had this, in her backyard, it was a lot of grass or whatever, and the grass was all tall, and it was, growing or whatever, and finally she, went to me, and she's like, you're living here, can't you, just cut the grass? And it wasn't deliberate. It wasn't I was deliberately not cutting the grass because I was lazy. It's just she didn't tell me to do it, so I just didn't do it. And I was like, wow, I've lost that ability to just take the initiative and be a free thinker. So it did take me a while to kind of get used to no one's going to do it for you. No one's going to think for you. No one's going to do things for you. You're going to have to do it yourself. I remember going to junior college, and I sat with the the counselor, and she was telling me like, oh, you know, I told her what I wanted to do, and I think at the time initially it was like a history major or something like that. And I was like, so what classes do I need to take? She said, oh, well, you can take this one, you can take that one, you can take that. I was like, just tell me what I'm taking. I'll take it, you know.
Please.
Yeah, so that was my first like wake up call to be like, wow, like I don't have anybody holding my hand anymore. I don't have anybody telling me like when I need to go to an appointment or when I have training or whatever. It's like I need to figure it all out on my own. And it did take me a couple of years to kind of like really like start figuring it out, you know. And so I get that.
Exactly, like you know, we just want to bridge that gap. I mean, you know, some people get it right off the bat, you know, and it's not a matter of like if you get it or not, but we just want to create that community. You never know, they might. I mean, people share the same common ground about eco-friendly, you know, like, and also the plastic crisis we're in right now and how huge it is. You know, I know a bunch of guys I serve with that just want to continue in some way to do the right thing. Because I feel like at the end of the day, everyone shares that common ground when you serve. You just want to do the right thing, or like, you know, you love helping people. I feel like that's a very common ground for everyone who's served.
Oh, for sure. You see like a lot of guys and girls that were in the military that are either in jobs that are kind of like attached to what they did in the military, you know, like if you were security forces, chances are you're gonna be a cop.
Yeah.
And whether you're female or male, and there's always this sense of like service, and there's always a sense of like wanting to do more, you know, and like do something for people. You know, if you see like someone drop their bag or someone fall or their car's broken down, if you have like a veteran that's going by, chances are they're gonna be the first ones that's gonna stop and try to offer help. You know what I mean? And I think that's an amazing quality that we kind of learn in the military, you know, to help out your fellow man.
Of course.
I think too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think too that you know, being veterans and wanting to give back, you know, it's huge in life. There's a whole aspect of selflessness and charity, and I feel like if a lot more people were to follow suit with that attribute, it would be more beneficial for everyone.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
we're kind of there to show that character trait as well, and show that you can give back, you know.
Where do you guys see the business going from? Like, I understand, like, you in 5 years, you want to hire a bunch of veterans and stuff like that, but where do you see yourself? Like, what's the business plan you don't mind sharing? And as far as, like, you're selling T-shirts now, but then, like, what steps do you want to take?
So we want to take, you know, we want to take steps in the right direction for the country itself. We want to be able to provide, you know, the outlet for veterans, like I was talking about, hiring, you know, veterans. But we also want to start fixing the, you know, the landfill crisis we got going on in our country. Like, you know, everyone knows we ship our trash. You know, that's terrible. We shouldn't have to do that. We want to be able to create an impact in that area as well.
Have you thought about linking up with other veteran-like companies?
Yeah, of course. You know, we're always open to meeting new veteran businesses, or, you know, it doesn't have to be veteran businesses, but just anyone in general about our cause. We have no problems with doing that at all.
And how are you guys doing your social media as far as, like, if you have, like, a beach cleanup planned, how are you getting that out into the world so everyone knows, like, what you're doing? How are you, like, putting those messages out?
We'll make an announcement about it. We typically try and do about a month to 3 weeks in advance so people have time to plan. We'll typically do it on a weekend so people are free. And we'll put this flyer, or we'll make like a video or a post about it, and then we'll say, hey guys, you know, be aware this is coming up, and then we'll have people from their platforms share it to kind of get the word out, like a word of mouth.
Nice. And then what are you doing with all the recycling? Are you taking that and
So,
recycling it and then using it to
we take it to a facility that properly recycles through all the materials we get, and the trash just, you know, goes with the trash.
Right, but is there like certain recycling places, like, if you guys know from what you've been doing, like, is there like certain places like you maybe shouldn't take it to, or you should take it to, some that are more reputable, that aren't reputable?
Most of the companies down here are all doing the same thing, you know, just privately owned, or, you know, have some more government backing from the state.
California is a little different. As far as regulations and everything, they're pretty strict, which we're pretty lucky to have. I'm sure that there are like your ones and twosies that get out there that'll, you know, kind of ride that line of maybe not following that regulation, but for the most part they're pretty strict, so most of the businesses operating here are pretty reputable. I haven't had any troubles with anyone.
Super cool. Yeah, I've seen a couple like beach cleanups in Virginia Beach, you know, like I don't know if you guys know Mitch Aguirre. He owns Massive Industries, so he does like supplements, he does shirts, and he's also an MMA fighter. He's a Navy SEAL.
Okay.
So he has a shirt that says "Environmental AF," and it's kind of, it goes to like what I was talking about, how you see the better community. Like you have this guy who's like a Navy SEAL, you know, like top tier 1 operator. And all of a sudden, like he cares about the environment. You know what I mean? He's not like some just Neanderthal that's walking around like wreaking havoc. It's like, no, he actually has a huge heart and wants to leave the environment better, just like you guys do, which is totally awesome. And it's a great message. You know what I mean? It's like it's you see kids, like even my own like sons. You know, I'll be walking around and I'll see trash on the ground. You know, especially when I'm hiking. You know, and I cannot stand how people will just take their trash and throw it. You know, it's like, who do you, like, number one, who do you think's gonna pick that up? It doesn't belong here, you know what I mean? Like, it's just nuts that people would do that. And that's part of the problem, is like shifting the awareness of people, being like, why do we have trash all over our beaches? Like, what's the point? Like, who's leaving it there? You know, it's like, pick it up. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand.
I think too, as far as veterans at least, I mean, I know something I always heard from like my seniors, you know, they were all the combat vets, they'd always say, pack it in, pack it out. Right. And they always harped on us, you know, some kid would throw MRE trash, he'd be like, all right, good, and then he'd,
for sure,
you know, make him pick it up. Exactly. So kind of that back thought and almost our like attention to detail and awareness of that sort of helps. So it's really the big question is, how do we put that onto the civilians who haven't had that? And that's kind of just by us conducting these beach cleanups, we hope to raise that awareness, like you were saying, to kind of get people in that mindset. You know, it might be one plastic bag you throw down, but someone else is going to see that and be like, oh, well, it's okay for me to do it. You know, and that causes a big impact. So small decisions can really lead to big impacts, definitely, negative or positive.
Yeah, I met a dude not too long ago that he's been plastic free for the last, I want to say, year and a half.
That's awesome.
And that's like super crazy and hard to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
everything that comes in plastic and everything that's packaged in plastic. But he's been plastic free for over a year and a half or whatever. And so I started thinking about it, and I was like, wow, what are some things that I buy that maybe I could avoid buying because they come in, like, whether it be plastic wrapped, cardboard, whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing for me was soap. I was like, dude, I'm buying like soap that comes in this huge like plastic bottle, or I'm buying soap that comes in like this plastic silicone, you know, like this, what doesn't need to be there. Yeah. So I was like, you know, I'm gonna start buying soap that's like handmade, that's like made at home or whatever, like a whole.
It's typically better.
Yeah, for sure. It's like that worth of soap that somebody made at home that, you know, that cared about the environment or whatever. I was like, so that was the one thing that I was doing to make changes. Mm-hmm. The other thing I noticed is that when I started waking up to like people just throwing their trash on the ground or flicking their cigarette outside of their car or whatever. One of the things I used to do when I was a kid is like I would be chewing gum and I would just spit it out. Yeah. And then I just spit it out. Like you see, I mean, you still see it now, like gum all over the sidewalk,
under the tables.
And that's like my the one thing that I know for certain that I can say, like the last 8 years I have never spit a piece of gum out ever. Like even when it's like I don't really have anything to put it in, I will leave it in my mouth until I have something to put it in and throw it away. Like,
put it on my ear.
Yeah, for sure, right? So like the gum could be tasting like shit falling apart in my mouth. I'm like, dude, I'm not spitting this thing out. Yeah. What's the best way for people to connect with you guys?
No.
How do they find you?
I say over Instagram is our biggest platform right now. Just simply shoot us a DM. We do our best to get back to everyone and figure it out. Like, we get a lot of guys DMing us, hey, when's your next cleanup and everything? And typically those guys show up because we just follow up. We're like, hey, here's our dates. We'll be posting soon. Yeah. We appreciate your cooperation about it. But Instagram, we're going to start pulling up on TikTok, other social media platforms, because we're realizing, we can't limit ourselves. We also are on Facebook.
Have you guys thought about starting a podcast or what?
We haven't, but that would be
maybe down the line. A good idea, along those lines, maybe down the line, start talking about environmental friendly, products and stuff like that. Because we plan to post actually coming up. We just finished up a couple videos we have like some K-cup recyclers, and we'd like show you some products like that you could buy that could help make your everyday living more eco-friendly.
Sure.
And as simple as just getting a Brita filter and a reusable water bottle.
Right.
Plastic bottles are just huge. I mean, I understand the convenience of it. You know, it's easy to go buy a pack and just take it to go.
Right.
When you could just, you know, have an Nalgene or something like that, which I think a lot of people are doing better now.
Hydro Flask.
Hydro Flask,
that's
50/50, all
huge
that.
Trend. I mean, military and civilian.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny though, the little changes we can all make. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Whether it be like what you're drinking out of, you know, like the bottles, what you're using for yourself, what you're using, you know, just where you're throwing your trash. You know, like it's funny you mentioned like shipping our trash, because I was thinking about the other day when I was like taking the trash out, and I was like, dude, like how much of this was necessary? Like how much of this did I really need to like use? You know, there's a guy that I know that he said he takes his trash out, I think every 6 weeks. That's how little trash like he produces. Like he doesn't use paper plates. He doesn't,
That's awesome.
and he like reuses the same plate and the same fork. He does his very best to buy like whole foods to where he's not using packaged anything. So he's like, yeah, maybe 6 weeks I'll take the trash out, but it's not like an every day, every week kind of thing at all.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's something I think everyone should try to do. I mean, especially now, you know, there's so much information about like what's truly happening, you know. I think maybe earlier on people just didn't have the information, you know, the internet was coming along and stuff like that, but now that the resources are there, I think everyone needs to start implementing it in some way, shape, or form. You know, I'm not saying go cut out everything, you know, like
Just little small things.
yeah,
for sure.
small things help.
Make a difference. Yeah, and if everyone starts doing it, especially.
Well, like I said before, too, you know, little small changes can make a huge impact.
Definitely.
So,
I'm going to ask you guys a couple questions that I ask everyone that comes on. You guys can answer together or individually. So actually, I'll ask Andrew first. If you had one person or one book that inspired you the most, like your entire life, who would that person be? What would that book be, and why?
it's a good question. So I'd definitely say, as far as my military career, my mentor, Darren Bear, he kind of just led me to choose the Marine Corps, and like through his experiences and everything, it kind of led up to that. But as far as just in life, definitely my dad. He's been an entrepreneur for like 25 years, you know, really successful, and he's taught me a lot of things. One thing is, you know, networking is everything. It's who you know. And, you know, giving back, charity is another huge thing that he's taught me. So those two combined. And then as far as a book, I actually read this book. It's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it's,
That's my favorite
great.
Book too.
For people who don't know who he is, he was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam. He had what he calls kind of two dads. So he had his rich dad, who was his best friend's dad, who wildly successful, was an entrepreneur, never went to college. And then his real dad, who was a college professor, and he basically died poor with nothing. And he kind of looked at both of them and he said, like, what's the difference? You know, my dad had like a doctorate, you know, why did he die like that? So he kind of took those two and he became super successful. And
for sure. No, I remember there was a guy that I was stationed with he would read that book on post, you know, and it was funny because you saw a lot of the other military guys that were around him, like, look at this guy, like, reading this investment book, like, you know, who does he think he is, you know? And it's like, wow, man, like, this guy's like trying to better himself, you know? Like, I was interested. I was like, dude, what is that book, man? What are you reading? Like, what is it about? You know, I want to know.
Yeah.
And I've shared that with other people, like, outside of the military, where it's like, when I was in the military, I felt like almost like I was in a bubble, you know? Like, you didn't really, I didn't know what, like, latest music was out. And this was before Facebook. This was before, you know, you could, everyone had a profile, you know what I mean? It was before all that. So, like, I didn't even know what was happening outside of my little military bubble, you know? So when you'd see books like that, you know, I was like, wow, like, this is new information. Like, I want to check it out.
Exactly.
And so that guy that I'm talking about, he ended up getting out and getting into real estate and actually doing really well for himself, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's awesome. What about for you? Like, what was your, like, who inspired you the most? And, like, Rich Dad Poor Dad was your book, too.
Oh, yeah. It's just an all-around good book.
Yeah, for sure.
I had some similarities in that book, too, so it just, like, leveled out. But my inspiration and, like, you know, kind of been my mentor throughout life, I would say, I've had a couple, but definitely my cousin, Scotty Cialis, you know, did spent his career in the Marine Corps and then got out, you know, has a great family. He's always been there for me, like growing up, guiding me. And even in my, you know, in my military career, he was always guiding me for leadership, like telling me, like, you know, you experience these things, like this is how I dealt with it. Maybe it's not the same for you. He just was always level-headed for me, and I always appreciated that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
If you guys had one lesson, Andrew, if you had one lesson that you maybe learned the hard way your whole life, that was you know, a tough lesson you had to learn that you could save someone else a heartache, what would that lesson be that you want to teach either a younger you or just a person that's coming up in the world?
I would say don't knock yourself too hard. You know, we all make failures, but those failures can be some of the best teachers. So as opposed to, you know, looking down on yourself and saying, oh, I'm a complete failure, and letting it get you down, definitely use that to your advantage and just make yourself better.
Sure. I like that, man.
Thank you.
What about you?
If I were to tell a younger individual, I would think it would have to be just learn as much as you can and just be a good person to those around you. Don't ever, you know, knock someone for wanting to do something, or you know, because growing up, I mean, it's a little bit different when you get older, but I just think being a good person in general, don't feel obligated to do something because everyone else is doing it. You know, you don't have to fit in with the trends, you don't have to fit with everything. Just be yourself and do what you want to do as a person, what you feel is great, because at the end of the day, no one else matters. It's about how you feel.
Oh, for sure. That's a great one, man, because I think a lot of us get stuck in that kind of groupthink mentality.
And especially, you know, like
Right.
the younger generations too, with social media and everything. Like, you know, I'm on social media all the time too, and you know, you see X, Y, and Z on there. You know, I'm sure that's an influence for a 12-year-old out there right now.
Yeah.
And they're worried about, oh, I need to have this, or I need to go, you know, I need to do this, but, you know.
And I think too, kind of like how you're saying with the book, it inherently influences people. So if you're in your own lane and you're trying to be the best person you can, you know, outside of that, it affects other people. They see that and they go, well, why isn't he following the trends? Like, that's kind of cool, you know, he's being an individual.
Right.
He's not worried about what the latest and greatest is. You know, he's trying to make a positive influence for himself and his future.
Yeah, it's a trip, man. As I've gotten older, that's kind of been my MO, is like just detaching from like the old ways of thinking and the old ways of like doing things. I don't need to be like everybody else, you know. Like 2 years ago, I decided to quit drinking, and that was one of the steps. And it was like I wasn't some raging alcoholic, and like everyone thinks that you need to be like some rager to decide to
quit.
Stop drinking, you know.
Yeah.
And I like to booze, you know, and I knew that like over 90% of the bad decisions I had made in my life revolved around alcohol. Like I was drunk when I did them, most likely. And so I was like why do I don't need that in my life. It doesn't make me a better human, and so I'm just gonna cut it out and just be done, you know, cut it off cold turkey. And I had people like in my immediate circle or whatever, like, dude, like, what's up with you, man? You're like, stop drinking and stuff. So you saw like some friendships or acquaintances started to like just kind of fall away because I wasn't part of the chaos anymore. I wasn't part of like doing the same thing like everyone else doing. Like, okay, cool, I'm gonna go to work, I'm gonna come home, I'm gonna get drunk, or I'm gonna drink, or on the weekends I'm gonna do the same thing. It's like, no, I'm just daring to be like different. You know, I don't want to do the same thing that everyone else does. You know,
But it almost is
you're trying to grow. You know, like,
right. It almost kind of puts a damper on like your everyday life, because I notice, you know, I don't drink a whole lot anymore. I'll have an occasional beer, but it's like if I drink to excess, then that puts my whole timeline on stop pretty much. I don't wake up on time. I don't get to go to the gym. I don't, you know, eat healthy, and everything just kind of gets slowed down. And it's like, really, you have to put it into perspective. Like you said, why am I doing this? What does it benefit? It doesn't.
Yeah.
And you know, I was at a bar like a week ago recently, but since I don't really drink, I got like a soda water and lime. And I just remember the girl next to me goes, "You don't drink? Like, what are you doing? You're at a bar."
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm getting called out by this stranger I don't even know for, you know, just let someone live their life.
Yeah, it's almost like, in a way, I feel like and this isn't a judgment, it's just an observation of myself. When I was drinking, I wasn't drinking because it was doing anything good for me. It was more like I was hiding from something. You know, it's like I was socially anxious. I didn't feel comfortable wherever I was, so I would lubricate myself to feel better.
Of course.
And I'm not saying that everybody does that, but for me, that's definitely what the case was.
I think it's across the board.
Yeah, and it was like a checkout. So when you have people like that make comments like that, like, "Oh, you don't even drink. Like, what are you doing here?" To me, what that shows is that they're insecure in themselves, kind of, you know, where it's like they feel the need to like judge you for the fact that you're not drinking because you're not part of whatever they're doing, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of sad. So for me, like, I've had a couple people where they felt judged by me because I chose not to drink, and I'm like,
it's like that,
dude. Like, I don't. If you want to
have fun,
if you want to drink, like, go ahead and drink. I'm not knocking you at all. I'll actually go with you to a bar. I'll go hang out with you just for the camaraderie and like the togetherness and getting out and socializing.
Yeah.
I just don't feel the need to be intoxicated.
Exactly.
And I'll be the DD. You guys don't have to worry about getting a DUI. You know, I'll drive you around. But it's funny, you do see people start to like get defensive by the fact that you're making a better choice for yourself.
Yeah, they'll say like, "Oh, you're a better man than I," and it's like, no,
I'm just a choice, man. That's it. No, I think that's incredible, man. I really do think that you guys should think about possibly. I don't want to shit all over you, but I think that it would be a good idea if you guys thought about doing a podcast. And the reason I say that, podcasting is such a great way to get outside of your niche here in Southern California. It's a great way to get outside of your veteran niche and reach so many different people. Because you have no clue, like, we're going to do this podcast, I'm going to release it, I have no clue who's going to listen to it.
Yeah,
it could be a bunch of veterans, but it could also be people that are struggling with addiction. It could be people who are, you know, kids coming up in the world and need like a little pep talk or some motivation or inspiration. It could be a grandma, a dad, who knows, you know? You never know who you're going to reach and what country you're going to reach them. So I think, especially with the message that you guys have and what you guys are doing, it would be amazing to have a podcast. And if you guys were networking with other veterans, or you guys were networking with other people that are trying to make a positive impact in the world, it would just make that impact even more, even greater.
No, of course.
And if there's anything that I could ever do to help you, like, in that journey, or if you guys have any questions about podcasting or how I set mine up and how because I learned from the beginning with like zero like mentorship from anybody really. Like it was like, okay, I'm gonna do a podcast, and I just went head first into it, and so I taught myself. And there was a lot of lessons that I learned along the way that I would be happy to share with you guys.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be really cool because I really do believe in the mission. I really do believe in what you guys are doing, and I think we could all like do a better job of like leaving this world better than we found it for the next generation.
I mean, you know, for you have kids. You know, you don't want to leave it worse than when you got it for them. And I feel like everyone could share that same common ground.
Right. Sure. And I can't tell you how many times I've had, you know, people from the older generation, like my dad's friends or whoever, come up to me and go, "Yeah, kid, I love what you're doing. We ruined this world, but you're gonna have to clean it up," or you know, something like that. That's not true.
But I think a lot of that too with the older generation maybe was just ignorance. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like a malicious act.
I think it was just a lack of information. You know, the internet wasn't around. You know, there wasn't a global network to where you could just simply go on your phone and go, "How is plastic affecting planet Earth?"
Of course. Yeah. But my point in saying that too is that, you know, now they have the resources. They can cut down on plastic, you know, they can bring their own bags to the grocery store. There's a plethora of things that they can do, and it's like for somebody to come up and say that, it was almost ridiculous to me. I'm like, oh, thanks. You know, I understand like the history of from where they're coming, but at the same time, there's still more to be done on their end. Yeah.
But I think by you guys starting what you're starting and other companies that are doing the same thing, I think it's going to be a ripple effect. You know, you're going to see.
I hope so.
Yeah, and I think it's like you see it across. I think it's like a collective consciousness in the world. You know, people waking up, like you said, with the access to information. People just know that it's not the way forward. You know, it's just like throwing plastic everywhere. And you look at I think they said there was like a trash or a garbage like island in the ocean that's like the size of Texas, and it's like that is insane to me, especially with the technology we have now. It's like why can't we get rid of that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we can go to outer space. We have self-automated cars. Why can't we get rid of plastic?
Yeah, I think it's gonna take like you and your company, me, and like just the information I'm getting from you guys and other places to be like, just start making these little incremental steps, to
Right.
get better. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Thank you so much for what
thank
you guys
you,
are
man.
doing.
Yeah,
It's been
thanks
a great
for having
time.
us. It's been awesome.
If there's anything that I could ever do to help you in any way, like by all means, man, reach out. I'll be happy to.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Talk soon, man.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening to My Backstory. Stay motivated and stay connected off the show. Follow at my_backstory_ to be a part of the journey to recovery and to see where your story goes. Or visit us online at hereismybackstory.com.